Hey there, this is PJ, and this is our daily lectionary reading. That is one day behind, and I apologize with that, as the move and the time getting my wife and daughter here was a little bit more intense than I was expecting. So this was going to be the reading for Tuesday, June 8th, 2021. We have our three readings. We have Psalm 74 as our psalm reading, 1 Kings 18, 17 through 40. Yes, 40 for our Old Testament reading, in Revelations chapter 20, verses 7 through 15 for our New Testament reading. And here are our readings. Psalm 74. You walked off and left us and never looked back. God, how could you do that? We're your very own sheep. How can you stomp off in anger? Refresh your memory of us. You brought us a long time ago, your most precious tribe. You paid a good price for us. Your very own Mount Zion. You actually lived here once. Come and visit the site of disaster. See how they have wrecked the sanctuary. While your people were at worship, your enemies barged in, brawling and scrawling graffiti. They set fire to the porch. Axes swinging, they chopped off the woodwork, beat down the doors with sledgehammers, then split them into kindling. They burned your holy place to the ground, violated the place of worship. They said to themselves, we'll wipe them all out, and burned down all the places of worship. That's not a sign or symbol of God in sight, nor anyone to speak in his name. No one who knows what's going on. How long, God, will barbarians blaspheme? Enemies curse and get by it. Why don't you do something? How long are you going to sit there with your hands folded in your lap? God is my king from the very start. He works salvation in the womb of the earth. With one blow, you split the sea into two. You made mincemeat of the dragon Tanin. You lopped off the head of the Leviathan. Then served them up in a stew for the animals. With your finger, you opened up the springs and the creeks, and dried up the wild flood waters. You own the day, you own the night. You put the stars into place. You laid out the four corners of the earth, shaped the seasons of summer and winter. Mark and remember God, all the enemy, taunts each idiot desecration. Don't throw your lambs to the wolves after all we've been through. Don't forget us. Remember your promises. The city is in darkness, the countryside violent. Don't leave the victims to rot in the street. Make them a choir that sings your praises. On your feet, O God. Stand up for yourself. Do you hear what they're saying about you? All the vile obscenities? Don't tune out their malicious filth, the brawling incentives that never let up. Our Old Testament reading today comes from 1 Kings, chapter 18, verses 17 through 40. And once again, this is going to be coming through the Message. Hear this story. The moment Ahab saw Elijah, he said, "So it's you, old troublemaker." "It's not I who has caused trouble in Israel," said Elijah, "but you and your government. You've dumped God's way and commands and run off after local gods, the Baals. Here's what I want you to do. Assemble everyone in Israel at Mount Carmel and make sure the special pets of Jezebel, the 450 prophets of the local gods of Baal, and the 400 prophets of the whore goddess Asherah are there. So Ahab summoned everyone in Israel, particularly the prophets, to Mount Carmel. Elijah challenged the people, "How long are you going to sit on the fence? If God is the real God, follow him. If it's Baal, follow him. Make up your minds." Nobody said a word. Nobody even made a move. Then Elijah said, "I'm the only prophet of God left in Israel, and there are 450 prophets of Baal. Let the Baal prophets bring up 2 oxen. Let them pick one, butcher it, and lay it on the altar on firewood. But don't ignite it. I'll take the other ox, cut it up, and lay it on the wood. But neither will I light the fire. Then you pray to your gods, and I'll pray to God, and the God who answers with fire will prove to be, in fact, God." All the people agreed. "A good plan. Do it." Elijah told the Baal prophets, "Choose your ox and prepare it. You go first. You're the majority. Then pray to your God, but don't light the fire." So they took an ox that he had given them, prepared it for the altar, and then prayed to Baal. They prayed all morning long, "Oh, Baal, answer us!" But nothing happened. Not so much of a whisper of a breeze. Desperate, they jumped and they stomped on the altar that they made. By noon, Elijah started making fun of them, taunting, "Call a little louder. He is God after all. Maybe he's off meditating somewhere or other, or maybe he's gotten involved in a project, or maybe he's on vacation. You don't suppose he's overslept, do you, and needs to be waked up?" They prayed louder and louder, cutting themselves with swords and knives, a ritual that was common to them, until they were covered in blood. They went on well past noon. They used every religious trick and strategy they knew to make something happen on the altar. But nothing happened. Not so much as a whisper. Not a flicker of a response. Then Elijah told the people, "Enough of that. It's my turn. Gather around." And they gathered. He then put the altar back together, for by now it was in ruins. Elijah took 12 stones, one for each of the 12 tribes of Jacob. The same Jacob to whom God had said, "From now on your name is Israel." He built the stones into the altar in honor of God. Then Elijah dug a fairly wide trench around the altar. He laid firewood on the altar, cut up the ox, put it on the wood, and said, "Fill 4 buckets of water and drench both the ox and the firewood." Then he said, "Do it again." And they did it. Then he said, "Do it a 3rd time." And they did it a 3rd time. The altar was drenched, and the trench was filled with the water. When it was time for the sacrifice to be offered, Elijah, the prophet, came up and prayed, "O God, God of Abraham, Isaac, and Israel, make it known that you are the God in Israel. I am your servant, and that I am doing what I'm doing under your orders. Answer me, O God. Answer me and reveal to this people that you are God, the true God, and that you are giving these people another chance of repentance." Immediately, the fire of God fell and burned up the offering, the wood, the stones, the dirt, and even the water in the trench. All the people saw it happen, and they fell on their face in awed worship, exclaiming, "God is true God. God is the true God." And Elijah told them, "Grab the Baal prophets. Don't let them get away." They grabbed them. Elijah had them taken down to the brook Kishon, and they massacred the lot. Our New Testament reading today comes from Revelations chapter 20, verses 7 through 15. When the 1,000 years are up, Satan will be loose from his cell and will launch again his old work of deceiving the nations, searching out victims in every nook and cranny of the earth, even Gog and Magog. He'll take them into going into war and will gather a huge army, millions strong. They'll stream across the earth, surround and lay siege to the camp of God's holy people, the beloved city. They'll no sooner get there than fire will pour out of the heaven and burn them up. The devil who deceived them will be hurled into the lake fire and brimstone, joining the beast and the false prophets, and the three in torment around the clock for the ages, without end. I saw a great white throne, the one enthroned. Nothing could stand before or against the presence, nothing in heaven, nothing on earth. And then I saw all the dead, great and small, standing there before the throne, and the books were open. Then another book was opened, the book of life. The dead were judged by what was written in the books, by the way that they had lived. Sea released its dead. Death and hell turned to their dead. Each man and woman was judged by what he or she had lived. Then death and hell were hurled into lake fire. This is the second death, lake fire. Anyone whose name was not found described in the book of life was hurled into the lake of fire. And here ends the readings from Tuesday.